pass that round just to capture your details, if that's all right. Apologies for the being a touch late. It's been a bit of a mission. It's been a mission to get down from Glenham on time. So thanks for the welcome, and pass that on to your daughter there, Lisa.
Yep.
I've got handouts here as well. I'll use them as a bit of a reference for what I'm going to talk about. And we'll wrap up with some questions. So whether it's to do with talking about the Marlborough Women's Triathlon or any training in general, feel free at the end just to fire away any questions that you might have. So quickly rub that off. I'm going to start by talking about what I consider the 7 keys to success. Well, actually, I better introduce myself. At least sort of told everyone who I am. Obviously, I'm Ray Boardman, coaching Lisa and sponsoring the whale run as well. I've had a background in triathlon. I started doing the sport in 1990, and I've basically been doing it ever since. I started off when I was at high school, and then carried on whilst I was at university and started studying towards health and fitness type activities. Didn't do a phys ed degree at Otago, but I did a number of phys ed papers as part of the degrees and associated subjects qualifications I got whilst I was down there. And also whilst I was down there, I joined the Territorial Force. So when I graduated, I went regular force in the Army, and when Lisa found that out, it scared her a bit. But I'm not as bad as the reputation of Army physical trainers, am I? So I try and plan training that's appropriate and designed around people's lifestyles and the time they've got available to achieve the goals that they want. And if their goals are unrealistic, I'm pretty honest and tell you, hey, look, I don't think that's realistic. Let's shape it into something that is a bit more realistic. I've coached a range of people, from reasonably top-level athletes that have won their age group at World Championships, both at duathlon, triathlon. I've had people win national titles at triathlon, duathlon, running, rowing, various other endurance-related sports as well. And as an athlete myself, I've done Ironman 6 times, completed Challenge Wanaka, been a national champion a few times myself as well, in different disciplines. So, but I get the most enjoyment out of coaching everyday people that have challenges around fitting training into their lifestyle. Rather than getting someone who's got about this much improvement to go to peak, I like working with people that have got this much improvement. There's a nice journey that people go on. And one of the big things I've enjoyed most lately, I've been working with the New Zealand Invictus Games team. I'm not sure if you've heard about that. Prince Harry established the Invictus Games back in 2014 for wounded and ill service people and veterans as part of their rehabilitation journey. So it's like a Paralympics for military personnel. And I was lucky enough to go over to Toronto last year, and I was coaching the New Zealand swimmers, rowers, cyclists and runners. This year I've dropped one of those sports, cyclists, and one of my colleagues is picking that up. So I just spent the weekend at Burnham at a coaching or a training camp from last Wednesday through to, got home late last night. Tonight I'm here, and then this weekend I'm in Hamner Springs running a training camp there for a group of women to the Spring Challenge. So the last couple of weeks have been pretty busy. Markers. So I said I was going to talk about 7 keys to success. The first one that I'm going to talk about is consistency. Hopefully I've spelled that correctly. Consistency in your training is the biggest key to success, really. If you can't consistently train, you're not going to get results. I'd much rather work with someone that can get out regularly 4 times for 30 minutes in a week, rather than someone that can do one session for 2 hours on the weekend. The person doing those 4 30-minute blocks is going to get a lot more benefit out of their training. Sorry, I'll hand these handouts out so that way you don't need to take too many notes. But feel free to take notes as well. The consistency in giving your body that little bit of stimulus and giving it to your body often is what's going to generate the results, as opposed to having one big hurt session and then you suffer and try and recover for the rest of the week. You might get some results, but you won't get the dedicated results that you'll get from the consistency. So that's the first big thing. The next thing is specificity. Change colour. So specificity of training is really important. You only get good at running by getting out and doing running. You only get good at cycling by getting out the door and going cycling. You only get good at swimming by getting down to the pool and practicing swimming. You'll find a lot of personal trainers, often well-meaning, that will train you for a triathlon by getting you in the weight room and doing lots of things in there. It doesn't really get the results. You might get the consistency side and improvement in fitness, but it's not going to be appropriate fitness for a triathlon. Currently she's an Instagram fitness model. So it's someone who takes photos of themselves, puts it on Instagram, and she set herself a challenge of doing 50 Ironman triathlons in 50 days. And she hasn't said it's consecutive days, but there's the implication there that it is going to be on consecutive, or it was supposed to be on consecutive days was the implication. And she's never done an Ironman triathlon in her life. And she's doing it to raise money for orphans in Cuba or Haiti or somewhere like that. Really great cause, but a little bit misguided in terms of her training. Had a look at her supposed coach yesterday, and he's a muscle-bound hole. So she got a day and a half into her second Ironman triathlon, and she was planning on taking about sort of 16 to 18 hours each day to do these different Ironmans. And unfortunately, she's struck her first problem and wasn't able to finish it, and ended up in hospital as a result. So, specificity is the key to, or one of the 7 keys to success. If you're not doing something that's specific to your outcome, then it's not going to be that great. Now, we've got a big bridge to build here in Kaikoura. Training for a women's triathlon, it involves swimming, and you don't have easy access to a swimming pool. So we can't put a big tick that everything's going to be perfect in that world, but we can do some things that are going to be close. And at the end of the day, the women's triathlon only involves swimming 4 lengths. So you don't need to be super fit. You don't need to be super fit. And you can stop and have a rest at the end, and even stop and have a rest partway down the lane if you need to. But when we talk about the training, I'll cover that in a little bit of detail. And I do have some sessions we can include in there to make it, to give you a little bit of upper body work to balance things out. So number 3 on my list is adequate recovery. You only get good and your body only adapts from the training that you do if you allow it to recover. The training doesn't actually make you better, it actually makes you worse. It breaks the body down, makes it sore, tired and fatigued. It's when you recover from that, the body builds itself back up stronger than it was previously. So you're getting a stronger, more fitter body out of the training that you've done as the long-term result. Immediately afterwards, you're not going to be fitter, you're not going to be stronger, you're not going to be better. But that recovery is what brings that through. That leads right into my next one, which is quality sleep. Are you all mothers? Not all of you? Most of you. Quality sleep, particularly when they're a little bit younger than this man, isn't always easy to come by. But quality sleep is when the body generates the best recovery. So make sure you get a good night's sleep is one of the keys to success, based around the limitations of your family life, obviously. If you do need more sleep, throw that hospital pass to the husband or partner and get them to do a bit of the work. The longer or the better sleep you can get, it's going to help guide that recovery. An example, or an old wife's tale is an hour before midnight is worth 2 afterwards. So it's going to bed at 1 a.m. and then getting up at 9, it's 8 hours sleep, but it's not going to be the same quality. It's going to bed at 9:30, getting up at 5:30, it's still 8 hours sleep. And just, you've got that longer lead into it. So make sure you get quality sleep as best you can and as often as you can. So, next up on my list, might be slightly biased, is hire a coach and get some good quality advice. Different coaches out there provide different levels of advice. And whether you're going directly to a coach and working on a one-on-one relationship like I am with Lisa, or just getting a quality training program and following that along, it's going to be better off than just trying to stumble through and do training when you can fit it into your life. Having the plan and the structure around that training that's going to progress it appropriately is really good. You can go to the next level and have someone monitor that and adjust it as you're going along, so it's the most appropriate based on everything that's been happening. It's going to set you up in a really good stead to achieve your goals. Next up should be reasonably selfish. Sorry?
Not yet.
Nutrition. That's what you're trying to say, wasn't it? Good.
You put that on YouTube, right, maybe.
So, quality nutrition does not include Nutri-Grain. It's a poor quality carbohydrate, often soaked in sugar. Despite the promotion they have on TV with supposedly fit surf lifesavers and triathletes, there's a few of them getting paid some good money to pretend that they eat Nutri-Grain all day, every day. Qwik aren't much better, once again, promoted by the All Blacks as well. So, quality nutrition is going to fuel your body, so you've got the energy to do the training, but it's also going to give you recovery prospects as well, which jumps back up here. It requires a good balance of carbohydrates, protein, and fats. A lot of people will tell you to avoid fats. A lot of people will tell you to avoid carbohydrates, but it's important to have all three of them in a balanced diet so you get the benefits of all of them. Carbohydrates provide you with the fuel, the energy for the higher intensity activities. Fats provide you with a lot of energy, particularly for the longer activities, but they also provide the building blocks for a lot of things, a lot of hormones in the body, both estrogen and testosterone, which males and females have both of them in their systems, just in opposite levels. Males not much estrogen, females lots of it, and vice versa. And protein, really important for the building of muscles and other cellular structures. So make sure you get good quality nutrition. Wholesome food is always a lot better than the packaged food. You're looking at something nice and easy. A healthy homemade salad is always going to be a lot better than a packaged salad from the supermarket or some other store. And getting good quality food is the key. And the last one, can you guess what that one? Hydration. Do you know what that means?
Drink water.
Yep. Put this up at another seminar once. Everyone thought that was an excuse to drink wine and beer. I'm sure you all know that alcohol actually dehydrates you, so it has the opposite effect. Quality hydration involves making sure you get enough fluid into the system. Water, at least 2 litres a day for most people is what they're going to need. And a good way of doing it is just have a couple of drink bottles, fill them up at the start of the day, keep them in the fridge, and drink them during the day. At the end of the day, they should be empty. If they're not, you've got a wee job at hand before you go to bed. Another way of doing it is putting a couple of hair ties on a drink bottle, or depending on the size of the drink bottle, enough hair ties to indicate if it's a 500ml bottle, you're going to need 4 of them on it. And each time you finish the drink bottle, you take your hair tie off, pile ready for the next day, until you finish the bottle with no hair ties on. That way you know you've drunk enough. Any questions, or do you want me to cover off any of the aspects of those 7 keys to success there? Right, so I've got 3 tips. Goal setting. Realistic goals. Just put SMART goals up there. It's important to have a think about what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. Lisa will probably tell a story about when I started coaching her. I sent her a questionnaire and had all these tricky questions for her to answer about goals and what she wanted to achieve. It's not just having a look at what you want to achieve, but why you want to achieve it and how you're going to reward yourself. Some people, completing the event is the reward in itself. Some people it's the journey. Some people are, they just want to try and be competitive either against their friends or against the people that are trying to race the event. But have a realistic look at what you're capable of, and then sit down and set some goals. The goals might not be to finish the Marlborough Women's Triathlon. It might be to complete 5 training sessions each week and be consistent. And if you are consistent for the next 14 weeks, I can almost guarantee that you will have success with completing the event. You won't even need to question that. The only thing that might trip you up is the top 2 inches, because some aspect you're not that comfortable with, more than likely to swim, because you haven't had much of an opportunity to do that. But I'm totally speculating there. Does everyone know what SMART refers to in terms of goal setting? Some blank stares and some nods. So first one is setting some specific goals. The M stands for measurable, so we can actually measure it. And sometimes the measuring is just a case of tick, yes, achieve, in case if you wanted to complete the Marlborough Women's Triathlon. It might be more measurable in time frame. You want to complete the Marlborough Women's Triathlon in under an hour, having done the opening run in under 28 minutes, the bike in 20 minutes, and the swim in probably 2 minutes to get under the 1 hour mark. So there's different ways of measuring things in terms of determining your success. A stands for achievable, and we talked about that before briefly. If it's not achievable, you're not really going to have the success. You're probably going to actually get demotivated because it just seems too far, too hard, and you can't see the pathway to it. And one of the ways to getting to that end goal is setting some stepping stones along the way. And I often use the example of running a 10K under a certain time. If we say 60 minutes, that's 6 minutes per kilometre. We can set the target. You might not be able to run a kilometre in 6 minutes right today, but set that goal of running a kilometre in 6 minutes in 4 weeks' time. And then set a goal of being able to maintain that 6 minutes kilometres for 3 kilometres by the end of the next month. And then 6Ks at 6 minutes per kilometre, i.e. under 36 minutes, and build those stepping stones towards achieving that overall goal. Achievable, hand in hand with that, is realistic. I don't see why, but other than making the acronym, that they're different. Achievable and realistic in my mind are basically the same thing. And time bound means that we put an end goal in for the Marlborough Women's Triathlon. Obviously that's event day. You can't turn up there 3 days afterwards or a week later and effectively do it. You can go close to attempting it, but you can't really do it at the same level. With the example of running that 10 kilometres in under an hour, by setting out the plan, you say, well, 5 months' time is when I'm going to achieve that. And here are the stepping stones along the way inside the first 4 weeks. So by the 21st of September, I want to be running my first kilometre under 6 minutes and onwards from there. Make sense? Train at an easy intensity. Who in the room are runners, who are walkers, and who are in between? I know you're a runner. You have moved into a new group. So most people that at the running level, so ignoring the in-betweeners and the walkers, train too hard. They finish their run, they're absolutely knackered, but they feel great because they've had a hard workout. Does that sound typical for some of you? Sounds like we need to get you running a little bit longer then. But people train too hard on their easy days and too easy when they're trying to do their hard days. So we'll talk about easy day and hard days later on, but not every day should be at the same intensity. We want to challenge yourself on some days by running longer, challenge yourself on some days by running harder, but not for as long, so it's a shorter session. And then on the other days, they're just easy sessions to help recover, or because you're going for a longer run. 80% of your training should be done at a lower intensity. Well, the benefits of doing it at that intensity is it builds the efficiency of the heart and lungs. As soon as you start running harder, you start generating lactic acid, and putting other waste products from the muscles into the bloodstream, which changes the whole physiological adaptations that are occurring during the training. To get the most out of it, you want to improve or lift up your aerobic base by improving the efficiency of the heart and lungs. So the ability to draw oxygen, draw air into the lungs, and then absorb oxygen from that air into the bloodstream. Then pump that out to the muscles that need it. So if you're running into the calves and into the hamstrings, cycling, quads and glutes, swimming, kayaking, that sort of thing, more upper body, although there's a lot of core work and particularly upper legs with kayaking. So you're wanting to be doing about 80% of your training at that lower intensity. And Lisa will tell you that I've had her running at, she probably thinks it's quite a hard intensity, up until I included the fartlek sessions where I got her running faster again. So.
They were my favourite because I got to walk.
Alright, the next one is make sure you stretch. So if we think back to the 7 keys to success, one of them was recovery. Now stretching enhances that recovery. You should be looking at doing that after every session that you do. Just spend sort of 5 to 10 minutes working on the muscles that are tight. It doesn't need to be anything super specific or focused. Just think, oh, my legs are tight. What's tight? My calves. So do a calf stretch. Do that a couple of times, and then work through the other muscles that are also tight as well. Make sure you hold them for a good sort of 20 to 30 seconds. The reason for that is the body's got, you know what a reflex is, where if you touch something hot, you automatically pull your hand away without having to think about it. So in the muscles, there's little sensors that determine how stretched the muscle is. And if they've been stretched for too long, they sort of switch off. And then when they switch off, that's when you get the benefit of the stretch. So it takes sort of around 15 to 20 seconds for them to switch off. So hold that stretch for sort of 20 to 30 seconds to get the most out of it. So do that after every training session, but I also like to include a dedicated stretch session into each week on a rest day. I call it a rest day, even though we do some positive training for the body by including a stretching session or including some yoga in that session as well. And there's a lot of good resources out there, particularly on YouTube. A couple of key ones I use are Yoga with Adrian and Yoga Candy, spelled with an I as well. Yoga Candy, she's got a dedicated session in there for a post-run stretch. It's about 18 minutes long. I think it's on YouTube. There's a 21-minute video or something, but the stretching itself, it's just sort of 18 minutes with a little bit of talking and an intro sort of music at the end as well. But that's really good to go through. Any questions on these 3 tips to help get you through training, get the most out of it?
With the stretching, is it better to, like if you're really quite locked up, to hold it for longer until you kind of get to where you want to be, or release and go back, release?
Release and go back. You're not trying to push it past its natural range of movement. You're just putting a stretch on and just holding it where you're feeling that tension. The more you push it on, the more you are pulling it apart. And you just want to feel that gentle stretch. You don't want to be pulling the muscle fibers apart. That's just going to create a whole lot more damage, which will be the opposite of the recovery that we're trying to achieve. Quite old school is doing some bounce stretches, trying to avoid that, because basically you're just pulling the fibers apart and doing the same thing. But gentle static stretches at the end of the session. If you want to include something in a warm-up, more dynamic type movements, for running, cycling, simple leg swings like that, it's going to generate blood flow through to the muscles, knee drives up. Once again, getting the blood flow going to the muscles. We're not bouncing it, we're just moving it through its natural range of movement.
So when you say, you know, 80% of the slow, has everyone got different levels?
Totally. Lisa going for a run isn't going to keep up with me at my slow level because we're totally different people with different fitness levels.
Yeah.
Slow for me is very fast for other people. Having said that, put me next to an African elite runner, their slow is probably going to be
Yeah.
way faster
Yeah.
than my fast. So it's all individually based. What I like to do for my runners, as opposed to the walkers and the in-betweeners, is send them off and do a 5k time trial or do a 5k race and see what they're capable of doing. Are they 18 minutes? Are they 38 minutes? And then look at what is going to be appropriate for them and give them advice on the pace they should be running based on how fast they get through that 5Ks. If they're doing a 10k race or a half marathon or something, or a full marathon, I can take those results and work out the same information based on that. 5 and 10Ks are the best ways of doing it. And it provides a great training workout as well. The body gets a good response from it. Awesome. Alright, so next up, we're going to look at structuring a week. And one of the key things when trying to fit your training in a week is, I talked about the consistency before. If we've got if we've got 4 sessions we're trying to fit in the week, if we put them in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we have this big gap at the end of the week. We'll get really tired from doing these 4 sessions, compounding on each other, and then we'll have this big recovery gap here where the body is trying to catch back up. It's not the most optimal way of doing it. A more efficient and effective way of doing it is to spread those sessions out across the week, probably something along the lines of that, where we've got 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. And if we look at, I mentioned or alluded to the hard day, easy day principle before. There's our hard day, there's our easy, there's our hard, there's our easy, and we've effectively got 2 hard days in the middle there. But we might look at it and think, well, that's the weekend, that session is definitely a lot harder. This one might be the easiest training session of the week, and we can probably classify it as a moderate. So we're still effectively building into it and then recovering from the hard sessions. If we're doing different sessions, I definitely wouldn't recommend that being one of the hardest sessions of the week. Doing something a little bit, probably the easiest session of the week. Now, if we're trying to fit in a 5th session, we'd probably look at splitting it something like that. 3 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off. And once again, we'd look at trying to make sure that we don't have things too hard. Easy, easy, that would be a hard one, that would be a hard one. So the 2 hardest workouts of the week, and then probably make the other 3 a step down from those 2 to get a bit of balance, and we're building through each time and then having some recovery after the hardest workout of the week. If we're to fit in a 6th session now, we'd basically have it there, and compared to the easy days, that's definitely going to be a moderate. And you'd probably want the one after the hard day where we're doing a workout to be the easiest workout of that week. Building through to the hard, easy, and then back to the start. Now, it doesn't matter, don't always have to have the rest day on Sunday. Most people I work with either have their rest day on Friday or the Monday. The reason for the Friday, it's an easy day, allowing them to rest up and recover before the weekend. Most people, that's when they've got the most time available to do a little bit more training, so that the volume of it is higher, so they need a little bit more rest leading into it. Or having it on the Monday, which is the recovery after a couple of bigger days of training. And then people who work shift work, we just shuffle the week based on their work cycle. Any questions on that? Touched on the rest day before. It's important to have it in. I never schedule 7 days of training unless there's something very specific someone's training for that requires back-to-back workouts in an event, or if they're training for a big trek or something like that. Some cycle races have Tour de France is 22 days riding, but when you get to that, you get a couple of rest days thrown in there between the different weeks. But some of the mid-length cycle races go back to back for 10 days. So in that case, part of dedicated blocks would give them more than 7 days training in a row, just to simulate the riding every single day as part of it.
Do your bodies get quite blunted with no recovery?
They do a lot to maximise their recovery in those situations. So the Tour of Southland, which is only 7 days long, it's based out of Invercargill, but goes all around Southland into Te Anau, Queenstown, up the Crown Range, and that. When the teams I've worked with, and most of the teams anyway, my sole job for it was as masseuse. So as soon as they finished the stage, I had 5 riders. I had basically 5 hours of massages to give, which is quite a draining day on top of everything. But usually go to the rider in the team that performs best. And excuse me, just turn that alert off. My phone's connected to my watch. The rider that performs best in the day gets the first massage, so they can start moving on with other things to assist with recovery, while the other riders will work on other things like getting through the shower, having hot-cold showers, or what's known as an Olympic shower. So you put it on as hot as you can go, tolerate, and over the next 3 minutes just wind that temperature up as you get used to the hotter and hotter temperature, getting it hotter and hotter, and then after about 3 minutes just turn it to ice cold for 30 seconds, spraying it on you spray it on the parts of the body that need it the most. So swimmers will focus on the upper body and the arms, whereas cyclists, runners don't typically do it for some reason. But whereas you target cycling muscles, basically the coldness constricts the blood vessels. After about 30 seconds, you start going hot again and getting it as hot as you can over the next 3 minutes. And you repeat that 3 or 4 times. And when you go hot, it goes from the constricted blood vessel to open it up, flushes the blood flow through, and the body gets rid of waste product quite effectively by doing it that way. Spending a bit of time stretching, getting that nutrition in, particularly the first couple of guys on the massage table will be eating energy bars and constantly drinking as well for the hydration side of it. So that by the time tea's finished getting cooked, I've usually got through a couple on the massage table and have a quick break. Everyone grabs a bite to eat and then we're on to the next few. But the massages after tea tend to get cut shorter and shorter because the riders are wanting to get to bed and get that sleep as well. So yeah, so there's other ways of working on that recovery other than just having time off. It's not like you're exercising for 24 hours each of these days. And the Tour of Southland, the stages are around the sort of 3 to 5 hour mark. With some of them a little bit shorter, but you've got 2 stages on that day. It might be 2 hour stages sort of thing. And how tired someone is after the stage depends on how actively involved in the racing they work. They might just be sitting in the bunch, not really doing much work, whilst playing a tactical game in support of someone in the team, while someone else is out off the front doing all the hard work, making the other teams chase us. Or it might be that we've got a couple of guys on front chasing one of the other teams out front, depending on how committed our involvement is to that sort of things. So, but in terms of your level of training, always have that rest day. It's very important. Alrighty, that's pretty much all I was going to talk about with the training side of things, or the theory side of things. Now I want to sort of talk about what to put in a week and how you can get around the fact that there's no swimming pool suitable for training currently in Kaikoura. So first one is we need to be getting out doing that training consistently, sort of 4 or 5 times a week at a minimum, but preferably 6 times a week, depending on your level of ability. How I break that up is basically 2 of each. So 2 swims, 2 bikes, 2 runs, plus a stretching session. So we've got 7 training sessions in that week, but that flexibility training or the yoga we do on that rest day. And in a basic program, I shouldn't have rubbed off the days. Monday's the rest day. Just be swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run. Simple in the structure. A longer bike and a longer run on the weekend to basically build everyone through. And then ease off into that rest day. Now in terms of here in Kaikoura, you don't have a swimming pool, so I'd probably look at either replacing both of these swim sessions with a strength session. Just put a T there to differentiate it between it, or I might actually double up one of those sessions as an extra bike or maybe a run. Now, if I was going to make it an extra bike, we want to try and separate the sports as much as possible so that you've got the time for the cycling muscles to recover whilst you're working on other things. So I changed the structure slightly. Bike, run, bike, strength, bike, run. So it's split up through the week like that. In that strength session, I'll keep it as a basic circuit, getting out, starting with a warm-up running, and then maybe doing some strength exercises, some squats, lunges, burpees, press-ups, partial curls, those sort of things. So you're getting an upper body activation, or you might want to go into the gym in town and do a weights workout in there, and that would be a good way of just targeting the upper body a little bit. In terms of swimming efficiency, strength training by itself isn't going to do much other than give you the mental confidence that you have done some upper body work for the swimming. If you find yourself getting up to Marlborough reasonably often, I'd take that opportunity to get into the swimming pool and do some lengths. Depending on your ability of swimming will depend on how much I encourage you or schedule for you to include. Any questions on that side of things?
Or like paddleboarding or kayaking?
Yeah, those sort of activities would be great if you've got access to a paddleboard or a kayak. So it's a good way of just giving the upper body some aerobic conditioning, nice and steady state.
I'm up at pool once a week and we've got yours to take along, so I'm taking the kids. You just need to sit in the car with the kids.
Give them a DVD player and you can have that conversation on the front while the kids are zoned down in the back.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Sweet. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover tonight with you. Now I'll sort of open it up to general questions overall. Are you all looking at doing the Marlborough Women's Triathlon, or you just wanted to come along and have a listen and see what I had to say, and you've got ideas in the back of your mind about another event after the whale run?
I'm support crew for Harry. I'm doing it. I love it.
What are the distances?
5k run, sort of 15, 16k bike ride, and then 100 metre sprint.
It's sprint, isn't it?
Yeah,
It'd be like all
basically.
over.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a really good achievable distance that anyone can do if they set their mind to it. It doesn't take much training to be able to string it all together and get through the event comfortably. So it's a really good introduction to the sport. It's in the reverse order from a traditional triathlon, the swims last, because you're finishing in the pool. It gives everyone a chance to spread out so that you're not all trying to fight for space in a lane at any one time.
So only 100 metres swim.
Yes. 4 legs. And you can stop and have that rest at the end. Even stop and put your feet down in the middle if you need to.
Take your snoot.
Unfortunately, you can't wear flippers. I do have a race I'm going up to Rotorua to do that allows you to wear flippers. The condition of wearing them in the swim is that you also wear them on the run on your feet. No one's taken up the race director on that offer yet.
Funny.
But he's a hard case race director. This is the 20th year he's been organising the half Ironman, and he's put an email out to, well, via Facebook, I think from memory, to anyone that did the original race, which I'll finish 10th at, that if we turn up with a box of beer, we're entered for free. He bills the race as the biggest triathlon party, end of year triathlon party in New Zealand, and I think if a few of us originals turn up with that box of beer, he's had the race sponsored by Heineken in previous years, and the winner got their weight in Heineken for winning it. So,
Would you say that hydration?
in that situation, make sure you're fully hydrated after the race before you commit to.
So what
anything
distance
afterwards.
is a half Ironman?
So half Ironman's a 2k swim,
Yeah.
a 90-kilometre bike ride, and then a half marathon run, so 21 kilometres.
2k swim. So,
The swim is, to be honest, the easiest part. Yeah, particularly with this race, it's one of the more hillier races around the world. And then the run is an off-road trail run, but amazingly scenic around the Blue Lake at Kaikoura. So you get on out to Kaikoura.
There's a half Ironman.
Yes. Full Ironman's double that, obviously.
Emma she said she might do better than Spring Challenge.
oh, she did apply for it.
Depends what you're into. A lot of people like the social aspect of the Spring Challenge, even for the more serious teams.
Yeah.
But they're still spending a day just adventuring with their mates.
And
There's-
no swimming.
Yeah.
Well, depends how well you paddle
Yeah.
around.
I don't really
He's
like
tried to
swimming.
get them in before. He's tried to get a little swim into the race a couple of years ago, and everybody
Yeah.
protested.
In Golden Bay.
Yeah.
What happened?
He wanted to get a little swim in, and I think it was probably the bit that
Actually,
we.
that's right.
Yeah,
Did
and
you?
everybody said no, so I took it out.
Having swim legs is getting more popular in adventure races. God's Own have used it a few times when they started at Kaikoura. They had a coast steering leg there that involved swimming out to a buoy, so you couldn't just stick to the coast the whole way. You had to get in and actually swim. And a number of international adventure races are doing that too.
Do you have to have a road bike?
No. I'd probably say 80% of people do it on a mountain bike.
Yeah.
The faster people, the more competitive ones, they all have road bikes. And then towards the end of the race, it's just the occasional road bike while everyone else is on mountain bikes or even beach cruises.
And do serious people do this one, or is it all just fun?
It's pretty much all just fun. The serious people
Go further stuff.
zap off at the start and you won't see them again. But yeah, there's very few people that are at the sharp end.
So how fast would the fastest ones be doing it?
5k run in about 23 minutes, the bike under 30 minutes, and the swim in literally a couple of minutes.
No pressure, like
You know, I'm just aiming to be able to get out of the pool at the end of it.
Just out of interest.
There you go, yeah.
The ladder's there to climb up.
So you're going to come and get out. Throw me a blade. Throw me a blade.
You help me, right, Jake?
Yeah, exactly.
So any other questions? Training in general, spring challenge training, spring challenge came up.
Are you doing anything? No. That's not
Yeah, same. Yeah. Have you done that able assessment from
The coastal basic?
Yes.
No, I haven't done it, and you said it's quite hilly. So, coached a couple of people to do it.
You would be fine. It's only like.
It depends on how you define hills, yeah. From up in the back box there, that's the gentle undulations.
You'll be fine.
These are mountain goats.
No, but it does look like there's some quite sharp ups.
It's because it's all condensed in. It's all the scale.
Does it
It's
feel
really
it's only like 100 metre, it'd be about 4, maybe not even 100 metre climbs. The rest of it's just gentle.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from
Very
those things. Eh?
Does it follow the track?
Yeah, just it's from
Yeah, and it's a nice wide. It's basically a road race on hard packed track, a little bit on sand, not much. So. It's middle of October from the top of my head.
I have a question about training when you're sick.
Yeah, what sort of sickness are we talking about? Just the
like-
winter ills?
Yeah.
Yep,
Just your
so
normal-
the rule of thumb, I go like this. If it's down in the chest, don't train. Recover. If it's above and just a sniffly nose, then you're fine to train through it. But if it changes from nose down into the chest, which a lot of them will, then when it gets down into the chest, just stop your training. And even if you just do some yoga every day to help with the flexibility and the recovery from the training you've done, it won't help you recover from a cold or illness any quicker or better.
So the thing is, when you're training for something, you get really, I've got to train, because you worry you're going to lose fitness, don't you?
Yep.
So but you're probably not achieving much, are you?
No, if you're going to spiral yourself downhill, it will take you longer to climb out of that hole. So it's not helping you move forward towards your goal. There's no real point doing it.
Yeah.
So you will lose fitness by being sick. You can't change that. You can just change how long you are sick for. So the important thing is to get over the illness as quick as you can, and then you can get back into the training, as opposed to going, I'm going to get unfit because I'm not training. That's not quite the story. You're getting unfit because you're sick. So the longer you're sick, the more unfit you're going to be, the more you're going to take to climb out of it. So if you minimise how long you're sick and get over it as quick as possible, then you're going to be better come a big day.
So someone like me, as opposed to someone like them,
Yep.
if I get sick, do I lose fitness faster because I'm not
To be honest, they're going to lose it quicker because they've got more to lose. So if you think about like, you've got 100% fitness, and the cold's going to take 20% of that fitness away. They've got a greater amount, and they're losing 20% of that. Compared to someone who's down here, they're only losing this much. The fitter person is still going to be fitter if they're sick side by side. But the fitter person would have lost more, but you both would have lost the same amount relative to how much you had. Give or take a little bit, depending on how badly that affects you. And so the reason for it is because fitter people probably have a compromised immune system, particularly if they're right on the edge of being super competitive. Super competitive people often get sick quite quickly because their immune system's quite compromised.
With running, do you like some people say you should run 4 times a week and some say 5 or 6. Do you have a rule of
It depends on your
Yeah.
level of fitness and your capability. If someone's very injury prone, probably don't want them running 5-6 times a week. Give them other activities. When you look at swimming, cycling and running, assuming the bike setup is close or thereabouts, running is going to be the most injury prone activity, just due to the impact involved of the running. Cycling is not so much, but you've got the risk of trauma from crashing, and swimming. Swimming, the body is supported. Swimming, you're supported in the water, and there's not too much you can do. When you start getting massive volumes, like sort of 15 kilometres a week, then overuse injuries start coming to play there. But it's swimming's the least injury prone.
Nutrition wise,
Yep.
like I find I'm training a lot, eating like you know how the body needs its fast periods during the day or whatever. Is there kind of a gap between eating, or is it right to be kind of just mowing?
I think it's fine.
I like
I could say there's two schools of thoughts. There's one that talks really a lot about fasting, and another that talks about just snacking and grazing all day long. But the reality is there's not two, there's 500 million between here and here, different theories on that. If you look at the cavemen, they ate when they had food available, either through they've scavenged and found something, or they managed to kill something. So from the caveman days, yes, they did go through large periods of fasting, but we haven't lived in caveman type environment for many years. So the people that talk about that is the reason behind fasting for paleo diets, and that I can understand their theory, but the human has evolved. We're no longer the different species that we were back in the caveman day. We've evolved, and the food's evolved as well. I've read some scientific stuff about how food has changed over the years, not just looking at how it's changed in the last 100 years with all the additives and everything we add into it, but even simple things like lettuce, back in whenever it used to be quite a rubbery type plant that could not actually be consumed by humans or many animals at all. But over the time during the agricultural period, it changed for whatever reason. It changed during, I think it was the Ice Age. One of the Ice Ages came out of that. I can't really remember the details fully, but as a result of that, then it changed, and then it became a more edible plant with less latex within it. And obviously with the farming side of things, it's continued to change with not so much genetic modification, although that's happened in recent years, but people just sowing seeds together and cross-pollination, getting different things to change naturally. So there's a lot of foods that have changed along the journey as well. And the human species overall is affected a lot more by allergies and that sort of thing these days as well. So how we respond to the food has also evolved over time. So, to answer your question though, as long as you're getting enough fuel over the period when you need it, then that's fine. That's my take on things. I don't get too wound up in the detail of making sure you have 16-hour fast every 3 days or something. It's make sure that you're eating enough to do what your body needs it to do. So if you're in an active job, living and working on a farm, you're probably going to need a lot more than someone who's working out of an office and not expending as much energy.
If you're wanting to change your running from just your plod along that you can do, and if you want to get faster and quicker, and is that when you need to add? Is it just more time on your feet, or is it adding hills? And
there's a few different things, and I'll so this is looking at when people are getting at the competitive end of the running, where you've got not necessarily competing to win, but competing to achieve a time, or competing to beat someone that you have a neck and neck battle with often. And I'll structure the program and just put it roughly from now to then. And it doesn't matter if it's 5k, 10k, half marathon, marathon, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'll split it up into 4 blocks of training that aren't necessarily equal. I'll look at what the person's background is and work out what they need the most of. And it's a little bit of trial and error as well. But the first phase of training here, called the FI phase, or the Foundation and Injury Prevention phase, and that's basically preparing the body for the next 3/4 of the training. It will help improve the efficiency of the heart and lungs, build that aerobic base that I talked about earlier, strengthen up the muscles and the ligaments as we build into the distance of running. If it's someone that's starting out and can manage 30 to 40 minutes, that's where we'll be. If it's someone that can run 2 hours comfortably, we'll be doing a lot longer sessions. We'll be taking them from where they currently are and improving them and working on that. The next phase here is the early quality phase. In fact, all these phases are quality phases where we're targeting a little bit more speed into it. That's where we start putting in some higher intensity. We'll put in some hill reps to make people stronger. As you're running up a hill, you're working against gravity, the running muscles get strengthened as a result. We'll also make their long run longer than it was in this phase. We're still building the efficiency, and for someone who's running anything longer than 5Ks, the aerobic efficiency is going to be the key to their performance. So we're going to build that the whole way through, but during this phase here is where we add in some strength work. I'm going to jump over this middle one for a second, and then the final quality is the last phase. And this is where we're making things as specific as we can for whatever they're training for, whether it's a half marathon, a marathon, a 5K, 10K, triathlon, an Ironman, half Ironman. We'd make things specific to what they're trying to achieve. And when I say specific, we're not going to send them out to do an Ironman triathlon every weekend because that's as specific as we can get. But we'll send them out to do something at the intensity they're going to be racing at. And it might not be the whole session is at that intensity, but we might put some key parts of that session so they're showing the body the intensity and race-like conditions that they're going to experience at their event. So that's the final quality phase, and between the two of them is the transition quality phase. So we'll often have higher intensity work in here and then drop it down to the intensity that you can run at for 5 minutes, you can't maintain for a marathon. But if we lift that top end level of intensity, we know that you can run a marathon at sort of 65 to 75% of your max. If we move your max higher in this phase here, the 60 to 75% will move up as well, and so you'll get a better result. So we're building that top end and then targeting the specifics in that final phase. And it depends how much time we've got, whether we've got 24 weeks or 12 weeks or something, more or less than those numbers. We'll play around, and often I like extending the foundation injury prevention phase, especially if someone's new to the sport. Then we can grow their base a little bit bigger and then give them the speed. But someone who's been training for many years and has already got a good aerobic base, we might cut that a little bit shorter and put a bit more effort into these. And these phases all have steady state, lower intensity training within them as well. Talked about that 80% marker before, so it works out at about that overall. So that's what we do there.
You know, when you talk about your hill reps, if there's like 5, I know I've got 5 to do, so I don't go really fast because I think I'll die. But like, should you be dying at the start?
You often end up dying.
Yeah.
The key to it.
I'm
You want enough self-integrity knowing that, hey look, for me to get the best out of these, I need to put my best effort in. If I go half-hearted at the start, I'm not going to get the best result. One thing I suggest to a lot of people is do the first one reasonably hard. Knowing that you've got 4 more to do afterwards, and you're not going to get the benefit if you go too hard in the first one and die in the last 2 and not really get much out of them. So you do need to hold back on the reins a little bit. But say it's for 5 by 3 minutes running up the hill, and then do 3 minutes up, turn around, jog back down. And because you've got gravity working with you, it's going to take about 3 minutes. It might be 3.5 or 4 or maybe 2.5 that takes you to get back down. So you run up, make a mental note. And if it's a dirt track, I usually just scuff my shoe like that, make a line on the track and run back down. And then, so the second rep, I know where I got to, and I'm trying to get to that point again. Usually on the second rep, I do get there. The third, fourth, fifth, not so much. But I'm trying to get as close to that as I can, and whether it's 1 metre or 10 metre off varies depending on what else I've been doing. But I don't want to be drifting miles away that I can't even see where I got to on the first rep. You can take what you learn that first session into a week later when you do it again. So, well, I know where I got to. It's just, and I struggle to maintain that. Let's not push that hard. And usually you find, even if you back off, you get to about the same point, but you can then be more consistent and get a lot further than the 5th one that you did last week.
So you know you talk about 80% is easy going.
Well, no, 80% of your training is easy. 80% is a reasonably solid effort.
So if you're running, I guess it's individual, but does that mean it all all that 80% has to be flat running, but if
No.
so if you personally find hilly running fine,
Yep.
which I don't, but so it's an individual thing, obviously.
So you don't.
What-
No one finds steep hill running easy. There's no way of classifying that. But undulations, and depending on your fitness, some people will handle longer and slightly steeper hills better than other people. So as long as you can keep the intensity, how much effort you're putting in, and there's a number of ways we can measure effort. If we're using straight pace, I talked about that 6 minutes per K earlier in an example for goal setting. If that's what you run on the flat, obviously it's going to be slower if you're running on the hills for the same amount of effort. And that's the key thing, it's the amount of effort you're putting in. Heart rate is another method of measuring and assessing intensity, but it's not the greatest because there's a number of factors that affect your heart rate. How well hydrated you are has a massive effect on your heart rate. Whether you've had any stimulants like caffeine will have an effect on your heart rate. How tired and fatigued you are, how long the session's been, how well or what sort of nutrition you've got on board, fueling for it, will all have an impact on that heart rate. So it's not the easiest tool. It was great in the early 90s when heart rate monitors came out. We all thought it was the greatest training tool to measure intensity, but we've since learned it's not the greatest. But it is an effective tool in most situations, assuming that things are similar from day to day. You always have a coffee first thing in the morning before you run. The effect of that caffeine on your heart rate is going to be similar from day to day.
Jen, you look so deep and dull.
This might be a silly question, but
No question's a silly question.
well, this is obviously personal because I can't talk for anyone else. But if I'm running on a slight uphill, from home, and then tonight I went up Bay Paddock, which is more of an incline, do I sort of push to keep at?
No. In terms of what I do with you and prescribe that intent or that pace to try and stick to, just ease off. So you know what the intensity feels like running at, and I can't remember your numbers because I've got 25 people that are trying. If I tried to keep track of all 25s, I'd never even remember my own. So
it's normally
I focus on mine.
3?
About 8. Yeah. So that 8 on that slight incline, you're going to need to tone it back 820, 830 on the steeper incline, just so you're getting, just subjectively. Within the Training Peak software I use, I actually look at some other stuff that sort of normalises it and says what you would run if it was a flat run, and that's where I look at an indicator of how successful the workout was. So you can slow down, you don't need to work so hard to keep that pace.
It's like I always listen to I'm like, gotta get that. Oh, come on, I'm here, there.
Any other questions? That was a good question.
Oh, that zone thing is just doing my head, and I just like get like to 100% like that.
If it's any consolation, I don't get 100%. With the software I use to prescribe and manage and analyse people's training, particularly, well not particularly, when I've got athletes doing steady state session, not with fartlek, I actually usually make a comment about how much time they spend in zone. And often I'll share that within a private Facebook group if someone has a really good one. And I've got a client up in Taupo and I don't know how he does it. He must be scanning the system somewhere. But he often will go for a 4-hour bike ride and spend 100% of the time in zone. And when I go into it, he's only like 12 seconds that he was out of zone over a 4-hour bike ride. And I'm like, how the hell did he do it?
Been doing it for years?
No, he's only new to the sport. I've been coaching him for about 2 years and he's been doing it.
But where does he do it?
Washington.
Because sometimes you need to stop at something or
No,
a gate or
no, he's out on the roads, trucks going past, climbing hills on the naked Taupo road or getting out to Kaikoura. Yeah, runs.
It's probably 20 years younger than us.
yeah. I bet he isn't it good? No sleep.
He's not super young, but yeah, he's a reasonably fit athlete though. So probably helps. I'm super stoked if I get 80% in zone personally. So 70% is a good day.
Let's get fixated on this one little thing. Well, I did it once. I really wanted to get it. I think we got like 80. What was it? 80? I don't know what one was.
84 maybe.
Oh, thanks. You should have screenshotted that, man.
Yeah.
Well, you still can. It's
No.
still a Facebook group.
That's alright.
And if it's raining, just go on that treadmill.
Yeah. Yeah, the dude's helping me out. Like a
Barbie
Nice
rats.
to let them push you.
Any more questions before we wrap things up? I do have a blatant plug. I do have some training programs available for the Marlborough Women's Triathlon. I've got them down there on the bottom right hand corner. I've got 3 plans, and one of them I've put together specifically for Kaikoura because you don't have access to a swimming pool, and including some circuits that you can include in that training. But normally I charge, all the training plans I do, I pump out through the Training Peak software, which is an American company, and so they sell the programs on my behalf and then pay me royalties from it. So it's usually in US dollars, and for a 12-week program it's 107 normally. But if you want to sign up today, I'll do a 12-week program for the Marlborough Women's Tri for 67 New Zealand dollars, and we'll circumvent the software and we'll feed you in from the back end as opposed to going in the front end. If you are interested, we can get you signed up and started on that. The 12-week mark's not, well, the program doesn't start until 3rd of September, so you do have a little bit of time before it kicks off. But at special price, it's only available if you sign up before 5 o'clock tomorrow. So.
What date is the event?
November, yeah. Should have looked that up before I came. It was late November. Either 24th or 25th would have been my gut instinct, but yeah.
I wrote it down.
We might run a
23rd November.
one here in March. But you get a taste for it.
So where would you swim? The sea?
Who to decide which side to do it? I think because the Fontaine will be in to do beaches and maybe a flat course around East March, just do laps rather than be more fun to do a mountain bike and trail run, but we'll see.
Well, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think to get access to parts of it.
So you're looking at organising that, are you? Or being involved in organising?
Oh, okay.
It's
Looked
a
at it
sports
test
isn't
and
it?
looked at it a few times, but we've done kids ones, but they've been real nice to do it.
Do we have this one?
Yes.
Do we do it?
Can we take someone to swim in there?
Yeah, well, you could do it. There you go. Get someone to swim. There
No
we
one
are.
wants to swim though.
And I'm happy to be involved like I am with the whale run. Quite big at supporting local events and small towns.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Also sponsor events, Whakatane, Karen, yeah.
Do you do a lot on the ocean swimming side of things? You do?
Swim.
I've been running open water swim seminars for many years.
Have you?
Yeah.
So some tricks.
Yeah.
To do when you see a shark.
Swim faster.
Just the basics of swimming.
Just be faster than the slowest swimmer.
Yeah.
Is there any idea when the pool might be? No.
How long's a piece of string?
We'd love to have one which we were hoping 2020, but it looks like at least a year after.
Do you think are they going to possibly fix the Lions pool, or that's a no?
Oh, there's some of the councillors are really keen on that, so we're trying very hard to dissuade them.
Yeah.
Just not wasting money on them, just go straight. We'll lobby hard. I can understand that you're like, well, let's just have something in the meantime, but I think that would take the wind out of the sails of everyone.
So where would it be? It's just like,
The survey just closed, isn't it? So it should help with people. So I think there was a question in there about. So this question in there about.
It was just, would you prefer an outdoor
Oh, that's right.
seasonal pool or an indoor year-round? Pretty much everybody's
that'd
doing
be so good.
it.
Well, you just need to look at Greymouth, a small
that's
town that
Right.
opened up a new facility, although there were problems with the roof. The facility here is amazing for the local community. And then, what's the name of it? Town just north of Greymouth, coal mining, Bigley. No, heaps further south than that. Just, keep thinking Marlborough, it's just everything. It starts with R as well. No, on the, so heading up to Westport. Rappahoe. No, south of Rappahoe. Starts with R as well. Probably doesn't start with R. So I'm going to have to Google it now. They've got a really
Well, you
great.
think why? Why not? No, they didn't.
Oh, they didn't?
The council gave them 600,000, and then Wire raised 300, which is massive.
Yeah, I was going to say,
For
that is
Wire.
massive.
It's tiny.
Mm.
It's a wish. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just, I suppose, we always have to fundraise everything, don't we?
Yeah.
Helps them go.
Yeah, but the
No,
health,
can't
it'd be
get it.
nice if they could put the health into it for the rehab. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the
It's like
physio.
do physio,
Absolutely.
do heaps of rehab. It just seems like such a no-brainer, doesn't it? It does.
An ageing population.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hits every age bracket.
Us aging runners.
All your buggered knees getting to go to the equal aerobics.
Do water running. No, I do actually go water. On the spot. Good.
Pools not long enough. Come and do laps around a little 6-5.
Yeah. Bit of a whizzy actually. I need the warmth. Yeah. So is your next event the half Ironman?
It probably is going to be. I was wanting to get here for the whale run, but unfortunately my partner's going up to the Pink concert. So someone's going to stay behind and look after the kids. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to get 5 kids motivated to get up early to get here.
That's not gonna happen.
No.
At least you pay them.
Money unfortunately doesn't motivate.
Yeah.
So what's the connection? How did you guys?
Michelle called me at a week moment.
It's so cool though.
It was perfect timing actually.
You've
It
done
was
well.
obviously meant to be. Ray's sponsoring the whale run, and so they'd said, is there anyone on staff willing to be coached to do it? And I walked in after the phone call. I went, yeah, I'll do it. I forgot about it. A couple of months later, Ray turns up here, and I'm like, oh shit. Shit got real.
I didn't think he was going to come.
Because Michelle's like, Ray's here. I'm like, Ray who? The coach, and you're like, oh, he's here. With his New Zealand Army top on, I was like, oh no. Camps.
Are you doing half?
No, just the
Doing
team.
10.
Yeah.
10K
That's
this year.
awesome.
If you like the whale page,
Sowing that seed.
Oh, she's been sewing it for a while now.
Well, I've seen her out training, and I've been going, ooh, Lisa.
So just watch the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Your blogs. How often do you write a blog?
Yeah.
It's quite inspiring. I do read your blogs and go, ooh,
Oh, that's good.
I'm not going to go for a run.
I keep telling you, it's one of the most read blogs or articles on my website.
Wow. You get this
I was
kind
really bored of it by now.
It was just relatable when it's
Yeah.
just a normal person. You know, it's not some high athlete. You are normal.
Trust me, yeah, normal. That's right. Yeah. That's cool. That's good. And you're half next year. Okay.
5 added safely. Is that a question, right?
Good. Get a bottle of wine.
Drink one.
Just half Martin
You
does.
feel like
Miss Carpenter does.
And
Relief teacher.
we brought her line from mini golf.
You what?
We brought her line at mini golf.
Oh.
She would have loved it.
Oh, so and you're doing the spring challenge thing and
Yeah, I'm doing a training camp in Hamner this weekend, so I've got 11 women coming through to learn how to ride a mountain bike and road skills and navigation.
that's how we left it quite late.
Oh, I do it about a month out
Yeah.
usually, and if I do a second one, I do that 2 months out. So I usually do one end of July and end of August. I've just been too busy with too much other stuff on.
Refresh and be behind.
Yeah.
it's like spring challenge and that other one,
Wilderness.
wilderness, because there's a few of us who are silly enough to put our hands up for the wilderness.
Yeah,
How,
great of you.
how serious a gear do you need, like bikes and
It's got to be reliable. You do need to have some quality stuff there. Absolute Wilderness goes a bit further into the wilderness than Spring Challenge.
Hey, Ray.
Oh, it's just like spring
You
challenge.
talked about putting what is it, taking glue. Yeah, go tubeless or glue. Is that called the
The
shape?
sharp,
yeah,
the sharp
something
plants
shoot
or something.
Yes.
The sharp
Yeah, so-
plants. What you
Oh, the
Tubeless tyres
Put rubber up your
have got a sealant in that keeps them sealed. So if something punches it, the sealant forms a seal around it. So you keep riding with whatever it is sticking in, whether it's a nail or a sharp spiky plant, decal palm or something.
Yeah.
So
So do you have to buy a bike, here's my ignorance, do you have to get a bike that has those sort of tyres, or can you put
No.
tubeless
Bike
on
you
any?
can put them on most modern wheels.
Oh, okay.
Not all. Yeah, so you need to check it out first. But you can just replace the wheels.
Okay.
New ones
But
on.
clean them a little bit.
It's
So you're going to replace the whole wheel or just
depends on the type of wheel you've got. Some
challenge last year.
so a wheel
So they
itself,
just went through all like the basics.
you've got the rubber tyre on the outside.
Yeah.
You've got the metal rim, carbon fibre rim,
And I actually did
and
like
the
that.
spikes leading into the hub. As long as the rim is suitable for tubeless,
Yeah.
you put tubeless tyres on,
like the small things, like
put some sealant in, pump them up.
Like should be down and how to put the weight and stuff.
But you still take a spare tube in case something happens, you blow the side out and all the sealant spills out. The sealant's got to seal a
Yeah.
big hole if you rip it on a rock or
So
something.
it's quite heavy having all that on tap.
It only does
And even like
small
a
holes.
like
So if you basically get
So
something
you think
punched
that
in,
is tubeless
like because they like tell you how to push the
no,
weight.
because it's about an hour job to do. So you just
like
take
little-
you just take a spare tube,
Yeah, like
take a
the
spare
women's
tube,
wheels
chuck it in,
are
pump it up, and it'll work.
wilderness
But it's not going to be as puncture resistant as what it was.
About 4 of us and
But since I've changed to tubeless, so much better.
Is it?
Yeah,
In what way?
you're not getting. I think I've only had one puncher, in 2 and a bit years with tubeless. So it's
So that's what's taken in
I don't do this biking to get it
and stuff. She's so crazy.
But down there it looks, yeah. So we're all doing it. We're doing 2 teams of. There's 2 teams of us doing the 3 hour.
Yep.
And so would we need tubeless tyres just for the 3 hour? No.
well, it doesn't really matter how long you're riding for.
Yeah.
It's the type of terrain you're riding on.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you're not going to be riding as long as people doing the 6 and 9 hour. So the risk of getting a puncture is going to be reduced.
Yeah.
But then again, the skill level of people doing the 6 and 9 is going to be higher, so they can probably ride more aware of
Yeah.
different things that will be a risk to the puncturing tyres. So,
And positive thing that you're not going to get one.
Yeah, because I hate
But then you could just take your extra tubes and the gas cans. It's real easy.
Yeah.
you know what you're talking about.
I did
know
spring
this
challenge
is-
last year.
Sorry, do you know when you were...
I did
So
spring
who's doing
challenge
spring
last
challenge?
year. Yeah, so
Oh,
we
Yeah.
not this year.
Lots
We
of
did like a bike maintenance course at Bike for Heaven. They ran a couple before Spring Challenge, and a women's
This year there's
wheels
lots of
mountain
bike
bike. Then we went to Kaikoura
Yes.
and like actually went riding with the wheel machine teachers like how to like distribute weight and when you should be standing up, how you should brake and like when to do skids and stuff. Like it was really cool. Like just made me, because I'm not very confident on the bike. I think.
And I will get punches.
Yeah.
I can't avoid stuff.
And then it's quite amazing having like a semi-decent mountain bike as well. Like that made the world of
Oh,
difference.
Yeah.
if you're fast, you
Yeah.
When to slow, you're on the
So it's like mountain biking. Is this in there?
It's quite commercial, way. I suppose it's whatever spin.
Well, it does what it does really well, though. It gets so many people into
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
They've done it before.
Yeah.
Absolute Wilderness isn't quite as commercial.
Yeah.
Same team organising it.
Sounds
It's a
more
little bit
appealing.
more adventurous.
When is that one?
What's your
February.
Oh yeah.
Nice, because you
Nice, a bit warmer.
Yeah.
Don't do it like that.
Down at Twizel as well, so it's
Oh yeah,
quite a
that's
cold
cool.
part
Yeah.
of the country. Unlike Reston this year, it just poured and poured and poured on us.
It sounds
Like-
terrible.
I grew up in Hokitika. My teammate grew up literally over the river from where it was, just south of Reston, and in the trekking leg after the rafting, we were in the bush with thunder and lightning going around, going, should not be seeing these lightning flashes in this dense bush. And we both grew up on the west coast, and we could not believe how much rain was getting through. It was, we were leading our category, and the course director, the guy Nathan gets to manage the course and the risk on the day. We saw this car pull up at the end of this, four-wheel drive pull up, but we were out of the bush, navigating through the bush, there was no track, but came out and got on some farm tracks and picked up a couple of control points. And we've been going, supposed to have a team of 3, and they seeded everyone for the raft with a prologue on the Friday night. So we had to do literally a 20-minute navigation circuit in Reston, and from the results from that they seeded you, because we were competing unranked. There was only 2 of us, because unfortunately my partner's ex couldn't look after the kids like we'd agreed, so we had to unfortunately drop her and leave her behind. So it was just a team of 2, so we were automatically seeded last. So we had the last raft and had to wait for her. It wasn't typical sprint for a K and get the best raft you can get. But it was, you were allocated your raft, and the first raft went to the second raft, followed on like that. So we were the 25th raft onto the water.
And is your time ticking away from the first one?
Sucks.
Well, we were never going to win
Yeah.
because we couldn't officially
Yeah.
finish. We were only ever going to be unranked because we didn't have a full team. But we worked hard and moved up a little bit in the rafting, but the team that was with us were the ones that were last in Pro. So,
Wine and cheese.
so
Wine and cheese.
yeah, we had a bit of a laugh with them. They were teaspooning on the side. As soon as we got on that navigation, I was just compass in hand, going straight through the bush, not deviating at all.
Yeah.
Carlos goes, "You're in charge of this, Ray. You just do it. You just do it. I'll follow you." And we caught up within a couple of checkpoints in the bush. We passed pretty much everyone and caught up to the leading team. We weren't sure if they were the leading team or not. We worked out later on, but we've sort of been aware of teams in the bush, and so we're trying to track how many were ahead of us. But we knew some of them had gone off on the 9-hour course as well. But yeah, we got to one of the checkpoints at the same time as them, and they told us that they were the lead team. We weren't 100% sure. We thought they were possibly right, and they took off in a totally different angle from me, on a different bearing. But we turned up at the next checkpoint at the same time and decided that we'd sort of work together, and we quickest way to get across was going straight across the Grey River, and it was rising. So across the Grey River and crossed a little bit. Well, didn't have the lightning at that stage. And then, so there's a big. So the river sort of curved round like that, and there was a 4-wheel drive track, and we needed to. There was a checkpoint there, and we wanted to get onto this 4-wheel drive track, but this is all cliffs here, so we decided to go across there and then cross there, and then cut through the bush to try and cross that. Whereas the other team were adamant they were just going to go around the end and get right onto the end of it. And it's like, well, if it doesn't stick out of the bush into the river, they could go in and sideline it for ages. I'm definitely going in this way, and if you guys want to do that, you guys go for it. We're not going to follow you anymore. We're going to do it this way. And we just pushed off into the bush, and all of a sudden they changed their mind and came with us. And Carlos didn't want anything to do with it, to be honest. He's like, no, bugger this. So he stopped with his shoelace up, and I stopped with him, and we stopped and had a sandwich and let them take off on their own thing. And then we got on the track and shot 10 minutes ahead because they were still looking for it, and popped out in the open farmland, and there's different control points to pick up along the way. But Mark, sort of when we got to him, there's a little wet stream that was like mid-calf deep, and the farmer and him are looking at it, and it's like, that seems pretty serious discussion, and they were showing obvious concern. I don't know what sort of trickle is usually in this stream, but it's probably not calf deep because it had been pouring down basically since we crossed the river. They're like, is this the worst you've crossed so far? I was like, no, we crossed the Grey River twice. And they're like, you what? So yeah, we did it with another team. They're all good too. But yeah, this, other than the Grey River, yeah, this is the fastest flowing and the deepest we've crossed. And then we pushed on, and yeah,
Oh my
just
God,
the rain got
massive.
worse and worse and worse and worse. And by the time they got the later starts, they were changing the course and sending people different ways, and they cancelled the 3-hour start and deferred that to the Sunday because of how much
So
the river
stressful
came
for
up.
them, eh? Imagine the stress
Totally.
they go through.
We were just lucky we were on the first start, so we, mind you, the flow on the river for the second start was pretty mean. They got some fast paddle times.
So yeah, Twizel, how are they gonna? You can't really raft in any of those rivers, can you? They're not fast enough.
No, and the water races, yeah.
But they're not fast. The water races.
I was wondering if it would be in the water races or whether it's somewhere.
Might be across the lane. There's plenty of rivers around there as well.
Yeah, but they're not. They're generally at that time of year. They're really low.
I'm
Get ready to
expecting.
start
I
paddling.
know. I think the jet boat at the time.
Yeah,
It sucks.
I'm expecting the water races to be honest.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not going to be down there doing it next year. So I've got other goals.
I never thought of the water races. Yeah.
That's another thing I spend a lot of time doing is guessing where the courses are going.
Yeah.
I typically give myself about an 80% mark in terms of guessing things. I haven't heard any rumours about Westport yet, but I'm speculating upper reaches of the Buller, and maybe getting up into Denniston. That's the mountain biking.
Yeah, I think you could be there.
They had to change Spring Challenge last year from Geraldine because of the river. We couldn't cross it on our bikes. We had to go down and around. Further biking.
Yes.
Can't run. I shouldn't know.
Sleep.
I didn't want to
I'm
run
doing
today.
Subway tomorrow. Yeah, that was us waving out the window yesterday. Did you see it?
Oh, I didn't leave my contacts in, and I can't do it. I don't know.
Right, oh, there's been. I was going to run down the window and yell at something smart. It was waved.
Oh,
Were
yeah.
you parked up at Tom's track today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I passed you.
Yeah.
I drove past you. That's out the road.
Oh, funny.
Well, thanks all for coming this evening. You do want to take up the opportunity to get on that training program for the Marlborough Women's Tri. Either grab me at the end of this, but I'll send an email out to all of you this evening when I get home. And yeah.
If people haven't been here tonight, are they able to take up the opportunity?
Yeah, give them one of those sheets and forward my email on to them. At least I see there were a few people that wanted to come, but had to change due to netball and kids and stuff. So.
Yeah.
It's going on.